Having a little sippy sip? Chapter 23. The Angel. As I drifted, I dreamed. Where I floated, under the dark water, I heard the happiest sound my mind could conjure up. As beautiful, as uplifting as it was ghastly. It was another snarl. Because the most happy, beautiful sound I can think of is a snarl.
Not even like it was his voice going, Bella, and you'd be like, oh, his voice, instead it was a creepy snarl.
I was brought back almost to the surface by a sharp pain slashing my upraised hand. I bet I know what that is. But I couldn't find my way back far enough to open my eyes. And then I knew I was dead. Because, through the heavy water, I heard the sound of an angel calling my name. Calling me heaven I wanted.
Oh my gosh, Bella, you're in so deep.
Oh, Bella, no! The angel's voice cried in horror. Behind that longed-for sound was another noise, an awful tumult. I've never seen tumult as a word without tumultuous.
Yeah, it's not common, I wouldn't think.
Behind that longed-for sound was another noise, an awful tumult that my mind shied away from. A vicious bass growling, a shocking snapping sound, and a high keening, suddenly breaking off. I tried to concentrate on the angel's voice instead. Bella, please, Bella, listen to me, please, please, Bella, please, he begged. Yes, I wanted to say anything, but I couldn't find my lips.
I love my lips, I love my lips, I love my lips, I love my lips. Just throw back some veggie tales in there. No, I couldn't find my lips.
I couldn't find my lips. Carlisle, the angel called, agony in his perfect voice. Bella, Bella, no, oh please, no, no. And the angel was sobbing tearless, broken sobs. The angel shouldn't weep, it was wrong. I tried to find him, to tell him everything was okay, but the water was so deep. It was pressing on me, and I couldn't breathe. There was a point of pressure against my head. It hurt. Then, as that pain broke through the darkness to me, other pains came, stronger pains. I cried out, gasping, breaking through the dark pool. Bella, the angel cried. I'm trying to figure out who says this next one. I'm gonna go with Carlisle. She's lost some blood, but the head wound isn't deep, a calm voice informed me. Watch for her leg, it's broken. A howl of rage strangled on the angel's lips. Clear!
Wait, I hope you guys didn't wait for me.
Some ribs, too, I think, the methodical voice continued. But the sharp pains were fading. There was a new pain, a scalding pain in my hand that was overshadowing everything else. Something was burning me. My bag, please, hold your breath, Alice, it will help, Carlisle promised. Alice, I groaned. She's here. She knew where to find you. My hand hurts, I tried to tell him. I know, Bella. I know.
It's one of those things where I feel like you laugh at because it's so obvious, but when you're the one in pain, you tend to say stuff like that.
1,000%. Like, I'm only laughing because I can. My hand is burning, I screamed, finally breaking through the last of the darkness, my eyes fluttering open. Carlisle, her hand! He bit her. Carlisle's voice was no longer calm. It was appalled. I heard Edward catch his breath in horror. Edward, you have to do it. It was Alice's voice, close by my head. No, he bellowed. Alice, I moaned. There may be a chance, Carlisle said. What? Edward begged. See if you can suck the venom back out. The wound is fairly clean. As Carlisle spoke, I could feel more pressure on my head, something poking and pulling at my scalp. I writhed in the grip of the fiery torture, the movement making the pain in my leg flare sickeningly. Edward! I screamed. I realized my eyes were closed again. I opened them, desperate to find his face, and I found him. Finally, I could see his perfect face staring at me, twisted into a mask of indecision and pain. Alice, get me something to brace her leg. Carlisle was bent over me, working on my head. Edward, you must do it now or it will be too late. Edward's face was drawn. I watched his eyes as the doubt was suddenly replaced with a blazing determination. His jaw tightened. I felt his cool, strong fingers on my burning hand, locking it in place. Then his head bent over, and his cold lips pressed against my skin. At first, the pain was worse. I screamed and thrashed against the cool hands that held me back. I heard Alice's voice trying to calm me. Something heavy held my leg to the floor, and Carlisle had my head locked in the vice of his stone arms. Then, slowly, my writhing calmed as my hand grew more and more numb. The fire was dulling, focusing into an ever smaller point. I felt my consciousness slipping as the pain subsided. I was afraid to fall back into the black water skin, afraid I would lose him to the darkness. Edward, I tried to say, but I couldn't hear my voice. They could hear me. He's right here, Bella. Stay, Edward, stay with me. I will. His voice was strained, but somehow triumphant. I sighed contentedly. The fire was gone, the other pain dulled by a sleepiness seeping through my body. Is it all out? Carlisle asked from somewhere far away. Her blood tastes clean, Edward said quietly. I can taste the morphine. Bella? Carlisle called to me. I tried to answer. The fire gone? Yes, I sighed. Thank you, Edward. I love you, he answered. I know. Okay, Han Solo. I heard my favorite sound in the world. Edward's quiet laugh, weak with relief. Bella? Carlisle asked again. I frowned. I wanted to sleep. What? Where is your mother? In Florida, I sighed. He tricked me, Edward. He watched our videos. The outrage in my voice was pitifully frail. I smell gasoline, I added, surprised through the haze in my brain. It's time to move her, Carlisle said. No, I want to sleep, I complained. You can sleep, sweetheart. I'll carry you, Edward soothed me. And I was in his arms, cradled against his chest. Sleep now, Bella, were the last words I heard. End of chapter. That was a very short chapter.
Whoa! My eyes opened to a bright white light. I was in an unfamiliar room, a white room. The wall beside me was covered in long vertical blinds. Over my head, the glaring lights blinded me. I was propped up on a hard, uneven bed, a bed with rails. The pillows were flat and lumpy. I thought that meant I was still alive. Death shouldn't be this uncomfortable. My hands were all twisted up clear tubes, and something was taped across my face, under my nose. I lifted my hand and took it off. No, you don't. And cool finger cut my hand. I never got that. Like, that happens all the time in movies.
Yeah.
They have like all guys rip it off. I'm like, ow, Edward. I turned my head slightly, and his exquisite face was just inches from mine. His chin resting on the edge of my pillow. I realized again that I was alive. This time with gratitude and elation. Oh, Edward, I'm so sorry. Shh. He shushed me. Everything's all right now. What happened? I couldn't remember clearly, and my mind rebelled against me as I tried to recall. I was almost too late. I could have been too late, he whispered, his voice tormented. I was so stupid, Edward. I thought he had my mom. I need to call Charlie my mom, I realized through the haze. Alice called them. Renee is here. Well, here at the hospital. She's getting something to eat right now. She's here? She'll be back soon, he promised. And you need to stay still. But what'd you tell her? I panicked. I had no interest in being soothed. You fell down 2 flights of stairs and through a window. I forgot how bad that excuse was. Okay, sorry. He paused. You have to admit, it could happen. Yeah. I stared down at my body under the sheets, the huge lump that was my leg. How bad am I asked. You have a broken leg, 4 broken ribs, and cracks in your skull, bruises covering every inch of your skin, and you've lost a lot of blood. How did you do it? I asked quietly. He knew what I meant at once. I'm not sure. He looked away from my wondering eyes, lifting my gauze-wrapped hand from the bed and holding it gently in his, careful not to disrupt the wire connecting me to one of the monitors. He sighed without returning my gaze. It was impossible to stop, he whispered. Impossible. But I did. He looked up finally with half a smile. I must love you. What happened to James? After I pulled him off of you, Emmett and Jasper took care of him. There was a fierce note of regret in his voice. I didn't see Emmett and Jasper there. They had to leave the room. There was a lot of blood. But you stayed. Yes, I stayed. And Alice and Carlisle? I said in wonder. They love you too, you know. Why are you here? I asked. He stared at me, first confusion, then hurt touching his eyes. His brows pulled together as he frowned. Do you want me to leave? No, I protested, horrified by the thought. No, I meant, why does my mother think you're here? I need to have my story straight before she gets back. I came to Phoenix to talk some sense into you, to convince you to come back to Forks. His wide eyes were so earnest and sincere, I almost believed in myself. I wasn't so lost to the soreness or the fog of medication that I didn't respond to his touch. The beeping of the monitor jumped around erratically. Now he wasn't the only one who could hear my heart misbehave. I wonder. He leaned in slowly, the beeping noise accelerated wildly before his lips even touched me. But when they did, though with the most gentle pressure, the beeping stopped altogether. He pulled Bro, this girl. I think I hear your mother, he said, grinning again. Don't leave me, I cried, an irrational surge of panic flooding through me. I won't, he promised solemnly, then he smiled. I'll take a nap. He moved from the hard plastic chair by my side to the turquoise faux leather recliner at the foot of my bed, leaning it all the way back and holding his side. Don't forget to breathe, I whispered sarcastically. He took a deep breath, his eyes still closed. The door opened a crack and she peeked through. Mom, I whispered, my voice full of love and relief. She took an Edward still form in the recliner and tiptoed to my bedside. He never leaves, does he? She mumbled to herself. Mom, I'm so glad to see you. She bent down to hug me gently, and I felt warm tears falling on my cheeks. Bella, I was so upset. I'm sorry, Mom, but everything's fine now. It's okay. I comforted her. I'm just glad to finally see your eyes open. How long have they been closed? It's Friday, hun. You've been out for a while. They had to keep you sedated for a while, honey. You got a lot of injuries. I know. I could feel them. You're lucky Dr. Cullen was here. He was such a nice man. Very young, though. He looks more like a model than a doctor. You met Carlisle? And Edward's sister Alice. She's a lovely girl. She is. I agreed wholeheartedly. She glanced over her shoulder at Edward, lying with his eyes closed in the chair. You didn't tell me you had such good friends with Boris. I cringed and then moaned. What hurts? She demanded anxiously, turning back to me. Edward's eyes flashed in my face. It's fine, I assured them. I just have to remember not to move. He lapsed back into his phony slumber. I took advantage of my mother's momentary distraction to keep the subject from returning to my less than candid behavior. Where's Belle? I asked quickly. Florida. Oh, Belle, you'll never guess. When we were about to leave, the best news. Oh, got signed, I guess? Yes! How did you guess? The Suns. Can you believe it? And you'll like Jacksonville so much, she gushed while I stared at her vacantly. It's always sunny and the humidity really isn't that bad. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. The humidity isn't that bad. What are you talking about?
It is.
Wait, Mom, I interrupted. Edward still had his eyes closed, but he looked too tense to pass his sleep. What are you talking about? I'm not going to Florida. I was in port. But you don't have to anymore, silly, she laughed. Phil will be able to be around so much more now. He talked about it a lot, and what I'm going to do is trade off on the away games. Half time with you, half time with him. Mom, I hesitated, wondering how best to be diplomatic about this. I want to live in Forks. I'm already settled in at school. I have a couple of girlfriends. She glanced toward Edward again when I reminded her of friends, so I tried another direction. And Charlie needs me. He was just all alone up there, and he can't cook at all. You want to stay in Forks? She asked, bewildered. The idea was inconceivable to her, and then her eyes flicked back to Edward. Why? I told you, school, Charlie, ouch. I shrugged, not a good idea. Her hands floated helplessly over me, trying to find a safe place to pat. She made do with my forehead. It was unbandaged. Bella, honey, you hate Forks, she reminded me. She frowned and looked back and forth between Edward and me, this time very deliberately. This part, she whispered. It's part of it, I admitted. No need to confess how big a part. So, have you had a chance to talk with Edward? I asked. Yes, she hesitated, looking at his perfectly still form. And I want to talk to you about that. I think the boy's in love with you, she accused, keeping her voice low. I think so too, I confided. And how do you feel about him? She only poorly concealed the rage and curiosity in her voice. I'm pretty crazy about him. There. That sounded like something a teenager with her first boyfriend might say. But you're so young, Bella. Her voice was unsure. As far as I can remember, this is the first time since I was 8 that she come close to trying to sound like a parental authority. I know that, Mom. Don't worry about it. It's just a crush. I soothed her. That's right, she agreed, easily pleased. Then she sighed and glanced guiltily over her shoulder at the big round clock on the wall. Do you need to go? She bit her lip. It's Phil's supposed to call in a little while. I didn't know you were going to wake up. No problem, Mom. I tried to tone down the relief so she wouldn't get her feelings hurt. I won't be alone. I'll be back soon. I've been sleeping here, you know, she announced, proud of herself. I can stay, baby, if you need me. No, Mom, I'll be fine. Edward will be with me. She looked like that might be why she wanted to stay. I'll be back tonight. It sounded as much like a warning as it sounded like a promise. And she glanced at Edward again as she said it. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Bella. Try to be more careful when you walk, honey. I don't want to lose you. Edward's eyes stayed closed, but a wide grin flashed across his face. That's so creepy. How's your nap? I asked. Interesting. His eyes narrowed. What? He looked down while he answered. I'm surprised. I thought Florida and your mother, well, I thought that's what you would want. I stared at him uncomprehendingly. But you'd be stuck inside all day in Florida. You'd only be able to come out at night, just like a real vampire. He almost smiled, but not quite. I would stay in Forks, Bella, or somewhere like it, he explained. Someplace where I couldn't hurt you anymore. It didn't sink in at first. I continued to stare at him blankly as the words one by one clicked into place in my head like a ghastly puzzle. And then another nurse walked purposely into the room. Edward sat still as stone as she took in my expression with practiced eye before turning to the monitors. Time for payment, sweetheart, she asked kindly, tapping the IV feed. No, I mumbled, trying to keep the agony out of my voice. I don't need anything. No need to be brave, honey. It's better if you don't get too stressed out. You need to rest. She waited, but I just shook my head. Okay, she sighed. Hit the call button when you're ready. She gave Edward a stern look and threw one more anxious glance at the machinery before leaving. His cool hands were on my face. I stared at him with wild eyes. Don't leave me, I begged in a broken voice. I won't, he promised, but my heart couldn't slow. Bella, he stroked my face anxiously. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here as long as you need me. You swear you won't leave me, I whispered. I tried to control the gasping at least. My ribs were throbbing. I swear. That's a load of rubbish. Anyways. His eyes were dark, closer to black than gold today. Are you tired of having to save me all the time? Do you want me to go away? No, I don't want to be without you, Bill. Of course not. Be rational. And I have no problem with saving you either, if it weren't for the fact that I was the one putting you in danger. I mean, I'm the reason that you're here. Yes, you are the reason, I frowned. The reason I'm here, alive. Barely. His voice was just a whisper, covered in gauze and plaster and hardly able to move. Promise me, I whispered. What? You know what? I was starting to get angry now. He was so stubbornly determined to dwell on the negative. I don't seem to be strong enough to stay away from you, so I suppose you'll get your way, whether it kills you or not, he added roughly. Good. He hadn't promised, though, a fact that I had not missed. The panic was only barely contained. I had no strength left to control the anger. You told me how you stopped, and I want to know why, I demanded. Why? He repeated wearily. Why you did it? Why didn't you just let the venom spread? By now I would be just like you. He was surprised and infuriated. His nostrils flared, his mouth looked as if it was chiseled from stone. Bella, you don't know. I've had almost 90 years to think about this, and I'm still not sure. Do you wish that Carlisle hadn't saved you? No, I don't wish that, he paused before continuing. My life was over. I wasn't giving anything up. You are my life. You're the only thing that would hurt me to lose. Charlie?
Anything that happened before a week ago?
Honestly, justice for Charlie.
I was getting better at this. It was easy to admit how much I needed him. He was very calm, though, decided. I can't do it, Bella. I won't do that to you. Why not? My throat rasped, but the words weren't as loud as I meant them to be. Don't tell me it's too hard. After today, I guess it was a few days ago anyway. After that, it should be nothing. He glared at me. And the pain, he asked? I blenched. I couldn't help it, but I tried to keep my expression from showing how clearly I remembered the feeling, the fire in my veins. That's my problem, I said. I can handle it. It's possible to take bravery to the point where it becomes insanity. It's not an issue. 3 days. Big deal. Edward grimaced again at my words as I reminded him that I was more informed than he had ever intended me to be. I watched him repress the anger, watching his eyes grew speculative. Charlie? He asked curtly. Renee? Minutes passed in silence as I struggled to answer his question.
We know how much she cares about them.
Yeah. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I closed it again. If you're waiting for me to be in my deathbed, I've got news for you. I was just there. You're going to recover, he reminded me. I took a deep breath to calm myself, ignoring the spasm of pain it triggered. I stared at him. He stared back. There was no compromise in his face. No, I said slowly. I'm not. His forehead creased. Bella, we're not having this discussion anymore. I refuse to damn you to an eternity of night, and that's the end of it. If you think that's the end, then you don't know me very well, I warned him. I know I'm going to be like you, someday. We stared at each other for a very long time. It was quiet except for the whirring of the machines, the beeping, the dripping, the ticking of the big clock on the wall. How are you feeling? He asked, eyeing the button for the nurse. I'm fine, I lied. I don't believe you, he said gently. I'm not going back to sleep. You need breath. He reached for the button. No! He ignored me. Yes, and the speaker on the wall squawked. I think we're ready for more pain medication, he said calmly, ignoring my furious expression. I'll send in the nurse. The voice sounded very bored. Then he smiled his crooked smile and took my face between his hands. I told you I'm not going anywhere. Don't be afraid. As long as it makes you happy, I'll be here. I smiled back, ignoring the ache in my cheeks. Talking about forever, you know. Oh, you'll get over it. It's just a crutch. I know you know better. He was laughing when the nurse came in, brandishing a syringe. Excuse me, she said brusquely to Edward. Here you go, honey, the nurse smiled as she injected the medicine in the tube. You'll feel better now. Thanks, I mumbled unenthusiastically. It didn't take long. I could feel the drowsiness trickling through my bloodstream almost immediately. That ought to do it, she muttered as my eyelids drooped. She must have left the room because something cold and smooth touched my face. Stay, the word was slurred. I will, he promised. His voice was beautiful, like a lullaby. I love you, he whispered. Me too. I know, he laughed quietly. Made it. My Kindle's not on 1%.
Yes! I've had just a couple days.
Country's on fire. Everyone's dying. You burned your tongue and your nose.